If you want to start set 11 with a couple of victories and first places, this video is going to help you because I'm going to share with you 5 comps that are going to be very strong at the beginning of the set, and I've trained them and I played them with challenger lobbies during the PBE time, so I'm pretty sure and confident that these comps are actually going to help you win some game. I'm going to share 5 comps and I'm going to explain a little bit more exactly how to play them, and also you have access to some cheat sheets I already prepared. You will have the link of this cheat sheet in the description, or you can find them on Tactor as well. First of all, I would like to talk about Dragonlord Janna. So Dragonlord Janna is a rework comp, and you have actually 2 ways of playing it. The one I like, but might be a bit harder to play, is the one with Riven as your bruiser, not a tank, a bruiser. And then after you play Janna and Zyra. But you have another version, which is with Neeko. So you don't reroll Riven 3, instead you reroll Neeko 3 and you put defensive stuff on her, not bruiser but defensive stuff. So this comp is really good because it allows you to not only have an extremely strong mid game once you find your units, but also it has a very strong late game and you have many ways to cap your board. Because you can play 4 Dragonlord, that's a late game synergy, you can play a lot of Sages, that's also a late game synergy, and you also have Altris, another late game synergies. I'm saying late game synergies because you can actually start to have 3, 4, or even 5 if you have emblems, only at the very late game when you start adding late game units such as Wukong, Rakan, Lee Sin, you know the stuff. And also you have so many ways to stuff them and have many late game carries. You can have Wukong with triple item, you can have Rakan with more items, you can have Lee Sin with more items. That's why this comp actually performs very well in the late game. Another thing I really like about this comp is that you are less likely dependent on items such as anti-heal, Morello, red buff, or shred, because the units you have already have these features. If you have 3-story river, you will summon Kale, and you can give her the talisman of aid that helps to shred the front line, so your units will deal more damage. That way you don't need a static, you don't need an ionic. Another thing I really like about Zyra is that she can be a great DPS side carry unit, of course, but she can also deal a lot of wound to the enemies. And you don't need to build something like Morello or Red Buff or Sunfire Cape, because Zyra already does the job with her spell. Thanks to this, you can really focus on items for Janna, who just needs to have Ginzu Shojin. She deals a lot of damage, but what she really needs is to ramp up the fights and have infinite scaling. And then you want to focus on the stuff on Zyra and Riven or Neeko, depending on what you find. And that's pretty much it. So here I showed the game plan. The way you want to play it for a 2-cost reroll, you want to reroll at level 6 with this kind of board to stabilize. And you want to make sure like you stay stabilized until you find your 3 stars. Once you find your 3 stars, you can push your levels and try to achieve this late game comp. If you're unsure how to play reroll comps, again, I have a link here about how to play a reroll comp for 2-cost units, but also for 1-cost and 3-cost reroll comps. So you have everything here. And then for the items for Janna, like I said, I really like to have Ginzu, because Janna is not a carry itself, it's more like a support carry. She will enable your team to be much better. And since she's enabling your team to be better thanks to her shield, you can actually make her ramp up during the games, during the fights with Ginzu, so she will be extremely powerful at the end of the fights. Otherwise, if you don't have Ginzu Shoji, it's fine. You still have Archangel, that's another way to scale into fights. And if you don't have this, you can still go with more traditional AP items such as Rabadon, Nature's Tooth, or Adaptive Helm. All of these are great as well. Don't necessarily try to aim for Ginzu Shojin, sometimes you won't be able to. And it's fine, don't worry about that. Okay, let's go with the second comp, Bard reroll with Tahm-Kench. So I think this comp is going to be much more popular than Janna. I think people will just try this comp naturally, even without looking at any guides. But I wanted to give you a couple of tips here to help you optimize this comp in different ways. So the way I really like to play this comp is with 5 Mythic, because 5 Mythic allows you to have very strong late game units, such as Hui, for instance, insanely good, Nautilus very reliable, and then after, of course, you have Tahm-Kench and Bard because they are your main carries, right, your main units. And finally, at the end, you can just add a little Neeko because she can give Arcanist thanks to Lissandra. So the way you want to play Bard is obviously you want to add a Trick Shot that allows Bard to access the backline and sometimes even delete the backline before he kills the frontline. And for Trick Shot, I just added a random Kaisa, but honestly, Like, it doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be Kesa. It can be severe. It's extremely good. It can be Teemo. It doesn't matter because she's not going to deal damage. Then after, you obviously want to activate Bruiser because Tahm Kench has an ability that deals more damage if he has more health than the opponent. And if he is Bruiser with a lot of health, thanks to Mythic as well, he has more chance to have more health than your opponent, so he will deal much more damage. And finally, you just want to play units that are just relevant, right? You want to add a Bruiser here, you want to add Lissandra for Arcanist with Amumu that gives Porcelain and Warden to Nautilus. It just fits well together, that's why you want to play this comp. As for the items, on Bard you want to have a Ginzu, he needs to have a lot of attack speed. And then after, you will realize soon enough that he deals mostly physical damage, even if he has a bit of magical damage in his kit. You still prefer to give him more AD stuff rather than AP. So that's why IE is really nice. And Giant Slayer because it allows Bard to amplify his damage and he gets AP and AD at the same time. So it's a very valuable item. Then for Tahm Kench, you have multiple ways to stuff him. If I had to choose perfectly my items, I would say it's Bloodthirster, Dragon's Claw, and Crown Guard. Gives a lot of AP, gives defensive stats, and allows Tahm Kench to have more health and also regen more his health. So he will always, or at least most of the time, have more HP than his target and will deal much more damage. And finally, in order to cap your board and finish first, you really want to rely on Hui. Hui is going to be your very late game hard carry. So for now, I just give him a Morello, but you can give him Shojin Morello plus Archangel or Rabadon, and he will deal an insane amount of damage, also healing a lot of health to your team. So Hui is going to be your win condition to finish first, and if you don't have Hui, you can still manage your top 4 thanks to these 2 units. It's a 3-cost reroll comp, so the way you want to play it is to stabilize your board at level 7 with this kind of board, and you want to make sure you have enough 2-star units so you don't lose fights, and from this point you will slow roll every turn. Again, it links to the same guide as how to make a 3-cost reroll comp. I'm also working on a video that will release most likely next week about all the different strategies to maximize your economy and play efficiently to be able to reroll your comps properly. As for the items, like I said earlier, I really like to have attack speed on Bard, so Ginzu is probably the best because right now the fights are quite long, so Ginzu has more value than Red Buff. But don't sleep on Red Buff, that's still a very good item. And after you can go with these items as offensive items because it allows Bard to have much more damage. Now I want to talk about Tristana and Volibear reroll as duelists. So this comp is really interesting to play. I think a lot of people also is going to try to play this comp, but I think this comp is slightly harder to play compared to Bard, as it requires a better understanding to stabilize your board properly and not bleed while you're rerolling your comps. So this comp is simple, 6 duelists. If you have an emblem, try to go for 8 duelists, of course, but without an emblem, it's 6 duelists anyway, you can't do more than that. And then after, you just splash in Dragonlords, Sage in order to cap your board for the late game. You will use Tristana as your main AD carry, you will use Volibear as your main AP carry. Right now, I don't really like to rely on Irelia because sometimes she bugs and doesn't deal damage at all during the fights. So she's kinda unreliable, and since she's unreliable, I don't want to invest any more items on her except red buff because she can apply red buff quite easily. So there's a little trick here. I put Tristana second row because I have Sage, and Sage gives Omnivamp to the units who are in the first and second row. And since Tristana is going to jump and then jump away, it doesn't matter where she starts. She can be here, she will be safe, she will jump and she'll go to a safer place. So she will benefit more from Sage than if she were in the back lane. So this is a 3-cost reroll comp. You want to reroll at level 7, and this is the kind of comp you want to reroll at level 7, 6 duelists with a lot of 2 stars. Also, I want to add that I feel like Volibear is much reliable during the mid game than Tristana. So I do prefer to prioritize stuff for Volibear rather than Tristana, if possible, of course. That way, it will be easier for you to win fights during stage 3 and stage 4. So you have enough health, so you have enough time to be able to find your 3-star units and then after cap your board with your late game units. So for Tristana, she's already a duelist. She will get already tons of attack speed. That's why I prefer to give her tons of AD. it just makes sense to me. If you have a lot of attack speed, you just want to have AD. And basically you have IE, Last Whisper, you have Hand of Justice if you're a bit scared that she can take damage and die, but you have a Giant Slayer, Deathblade, or even Guardbreaker. If you have a full crit build, it's actually nice. Alright, let's go with Lilia. Lilia is obviously a 4-cost unit, and this is the kind of comp you want to play if you don't really like rework comps and prefer to rush your level 8, rush your level 9, and play with a lot of late game units. So Invoker is a synergy that simply gives more mana, that's it. And usually it's not really worth to go for 6 Invoker unless you have an emblem, because it forces you to play low cost unit, and sometimes you don't really like it. You prefer to play like strong late game units. And if you play with 4 Invoker, you have the space to play 5 Mythic. I already explained a bit earlier like how 5 Mythic is good, especially now you can play Hui, Lilia, Nautilus. You have Kog'Maw, who's Invoker and Mythic, so he's a great synergy bot. And then after you just add a Nico, of course, because you need to complete the 5 Mythic. So you don't have a lot of wasted units, let's say, and instead you have a lot of valuable units. Here for this comp, the main tank is going to be Annie. She's an Invoker, and she is going to actually tank quite a lot as long as she has items. And then behind you have something like Lilia, who can scale with Archangel, and also can make the fights longer thanks to Gunblade, who will most likely heal your frontline, making your frontline last longer. And since your frontline lasts longer, your Archangel has more value. So it's kind of a cycle like this. And that's why these 2 items are actually really good together. Once again, your very late game win condition are going to be Hui 2 with some stuff, Azure 2 with some stuff, Wukong 2 with some stuff, depending on what you find. But this is going to help you cap your board very hard and practically secure first place if you don't face someone that has a ridiculous board as well. So this is the fast 8 comp, meaning that you will try to push level 8 as fast as possible without sacrificing too much of your health. I don't recommend to play this comp if you have a very weak early game. I prefer you to play a rework comp if you have a very weak early game, because most of the time if you aim for this comp while losing too much health in stage 2 and stage 3, you will not have the resources to find the units, and you will die mostly before finding Hui, Azir, Wukong, this kind of stuff that is going to make your board much stronger. So to play this comp, since it's a fast A comp, you have many ways to get into this. I'm just recommending one opener that's really good if you want to play this comp, is with Mythic and Kog'Maw. Kog'Maw is actually good unit if you have blue buff and Archangel, and as long as you have a decent frontline, Kog'Maw is going to help you win a lot of fights, or at least kill a lot of units if you're losing the fight, and that way you can push level 6 and 7 quite easily. The only difficulty of this is that maybe the level 7, when you're trying to push to level 8, is going to be a bit harder. You're going to lose a lot of health, but if you saved a lot of health before, it doesn't matter. You can trading that HP into time, so you can have enough time to push level 8, enough gold to roll, to find Lilia, Annie, and all the other units. So if you play Lilia, it's very easy. If you have 4 Invoker, it's actually kind of mandatory to have mana generation items, such as Blue Buff, Adaptive Helm, or Spear of Shojin. And if you have 6 Invoker, you don't need this. Instead, you only focus on 3 items that are really offensive or utility with Hextech Gunblade. And finally, the last comp I want to talk about today is Syndra with Fated and Arcanist. So Fated is kind of a trait that might be hard at first to understand if you haven't played PBE, but basically like when you have 5 Fated or more, you can link 2 units. If you link 2 units, let's say for instance, I link Yasuo and Thresh. Yasuo gives shield, Thresh gives resistances. All your units are going to benefit from these bonuses. So it means that Set will also get a shield and resistances, same for Syndra and Ahri. This comp is really good in the mid game, because the amount of shield and resistances that Yasuo and Thresh give is just too insane, and you can have a very strong and tanky team. Even with, if you put Aphelios front and Kindred front, they will tank quite a lot, and you will see a bit later how I position my units in the mid game. So since you play 5 Fated and you have a lot of resistances, because you will still link Yasuo and Thresh in the late game, you will want to have ramping up kind of build for Syndra. Meaning that of course you need a blue buff, I will explain a bit later, but thanks to having a team that's really tanky and difficult to kill, you can buy a lot of time, so Archangel Staff is much better than Rabadon. And since you want to buy even more time, you can give a Gunblade so that Syndra will literally be the hospital for your team. So again, this is a fast 8 comp. Just like Lia, don't play this comp if you're playing from behind. If you lose too much HP, it will be too hard to push level 8, find Syndra, stabilize, and then push level 9 to find set. So I really don't recommend to play this comp if you're playing from behind. And this is exactly what I wanted to show you about the stabilized board. If you have this kind of board at level 6 with 2-star Yasuo, 2-star Kindred, 2-star Ahri, and it's fine if you still don't have a 2-star Thresh or Aphelios, because sometimes you just don't find, most of the time actually you don't find them at level 6, and you link Yasuo and Thresh, so it means that all the 5 fated units here are going to be much tankier, and that's why you want to put Kindred and Aphelios front, because anyway they will tank like a tank. That's it, that's pretty much it. I forgot to mention that if you have a fated emblem, you should play 7 fated, and that's actually much better to play 7 fated and 4 arcanists if you have the fated emblem. If you don't have it, just play this comp, it's going to be great. And finally, the highlights for Syndra. Like I said, blue buff is the best, but if you have adaptive harm or Shojin, it's slightly less good, but it's fine. You really like to have healing, so you can actually buy a lot of time for your team. You really like to have Archangel Staff. If you don't have them, it's fine. It's less powerful, but you can still play Rabadon Nashor or Jewel Lotus. It doesn't mean that your comp is going to suck. It just means that maybe you will not finish first, but second instead. And honestly, it's fine. And I have one last message for you. If in this set you feel like you want to break your record, you really want to achieve Master, Grandmaster, Challenger, or even Diamond, it doesn't really matter. I can help you with that. I can help you with that because I have a private Discord. And with this private Discord, I share every single week all the comps I find very relevant in the meta, like Aphelios reroll. I didn't talk in this video, by the way. This is exclusive for the people in my Discord. I have the Tristana reroll, the Syndra, the Janna, and I have all of that. And I prepare every single week, and I prepare in advance, so you guys have all the weekend, all the time you want to actually spam this comp. I also share a lot of stuff like secret comps when I find them before the meta recognizes it, let's say. And if you want to have access to this, you simply need to be a YouTube member. So you can join with the link in the description, and then after you have access to Discord, and then after I can help you climb and get to your goals. Until this video, see you at the top of the ladder.